What I was addicted to was busyness and hustle and striving and so many of the things that became a crutch in my life.
It's almost like working for the approval of God, for the approval of others. And it is very tiring.
Our life is full, but sometimes it's filled with so much activity that there's no margin for the quiet whispers of the Lord.
Because if you're too busy for God, you're actually just too busy.
We are constantly in this fast-paced environment. He's saying the same thing. Come to me, all you who labor, and I will give you rest.
Hi friends, I'm Sabrina, and this is The Healthy Christian, a podcast about spiritual growth and emotional health, because the best you is a whole you. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about hustling, striving, what it means to live in rest and rhythm, Sabbath, all those fantastic topics. And today I have with me Bianca. Why don't you say hi?
Hello, so good to be here.
Wonderful to have you back with us. Bianca, can you please let the listeners know a little bit about yourself? What does life look like?
Right now, we are in the middle of transition. We just stepped out of our role, our full-time role as senior pastors, and we're in a kind of, open space, but I'm also a mum. So that keeps me very busy to 4 beautiful kiddos. We run some online ministry and, just a daughter of God.
Fantastic. I love your landing spot. Like, I'm a daughter of God.
Yeah.
No, you're an amazing woman. You have been in ministry, I think you said 14 years. You've obviously got 4 kids. You're in a change of season. It's almost what I see like a baton change, right? Like God is pulling you guys into something different.
Yes.
But you have a lot of depth. You have a lot of grace. And today we're going to talk about a subject that I believe both of us are passionate about, not only because we sometimes get it right, but I feel like for myself, I've stumbled along the way when it's come to rest.
Totally.
And when it's come to striving or kind of hustling and doing things maybe for the wrong reason and at a very incredible pace. What makes this topic relevant to you, and where would you start with that?
I would probably start with the testimony that led me to recognize how important rest is in our life. And I'll try and share it as briefly as I can.
Okay.
But essentially I just had my second son. I had come out of a role. I was working in media and public relations for many years, and then I stepped into ministry, but I was doing both for the longest time, as a lot of us in ministry do. We have a job in the workforce and also in ministry. So I was doing both, but I had just had my second son. At 3 weeks old, Lennox was diagnosed with epilepsy.
Whoa.
And it was a super intense time. At many points we thought we were going to lose him. The seizures were so severe. So we went through this journey of being in and out of hospital. It was so exhausting. It meant that I ended up having to leave my job, and just the stress on my nervous system and what we went through in that time, I had to completely step out of all ministry. I took about an 8-month sabbatical from ministry in that time in my life. So this was like going back almost 10 years ago now. He's 9. And I had to heal. I had to heal from so many different things, not just that season, but during that season, so much of my childhood trauma came up. I had been abused as a child and never shared that with anybody, and found myself for the first time in my life actually confronting a lot of things. And so it was a long journey. It was a big journey, but I did heal with the Lord. I sought a Christian counselor. And for the first time in my life, I realized that I didn't have any addictions. I didn't go through that process, but what I was addicted to was busyness. And I had worked so much to avoid the pain that was so buried. And so coming out of this beautiful season of healing with the Lord and coming out of the other side so light and so free, I knew that I couldn't walk the way that I had, that something in my life had to change. And that for me was busyness and hustle and striving and so many of the things that became a crutch in my life, really, if I'm honest, and I was honest with myself in that time, because we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to face those things. And so started a whole new pace of what it was to walk out life and ministry and motherhood. and it changed my life. Around the time that this was all happening and coming out of that season in my life, I picked up 2 books. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Happen to have it here.
Just happened to have
It's actually
it.
a fave of mine too.
And To Hell with the Hustle. And I could not believe that these guys were talking about some of the things that I was actually in the middle of walking out. And so they really, transformed me after that transformative season. It was just transformation after transformation. And I learned how important rest was. And I learned how important it was to focus on resting in the Lord, our ministry to Him, and not pouring out all the time. That's it in a nutshell.
Wow. That is a robust nutshell. And thank you so much for being so open. I think honesty is the birthplace of healing and transformation. And you skipped over it, but you did mention something. You mentioned abuse when you're a child. I never knew that. And I'm sorry to hear that, because that is often what happens is things go on in our life and they kind of sit in the recess or the darkness of our soul, and then they come out in different ways. I'm sorry, that's incredibly difficult. And I'm glad to hear that you've been on that pathway of healing for a number of years now. Totally. You said something very interesting. You said, I didn't have any addictions, but it's almost like you're addicted to productivity or performance. And I remember years ago speaking with a pastor in our church, Pastor Mervyn Jayasila, and he's just an incredible man. He does a lot with recovery. He's a counselor. He's also a pastor. And he told me something that I'd never known before. He said, often when a person experiences something difficult or a traumatic childhood or some form of trauma, 2 pathways are formed. One person can go down the pathway of addiction, so that could be substances, alcoholism, pornography, anything like that, or even food, right? So there can be this addiction pathway to kind of soothe the pain and to soothe the wound. Or there's a second one, and that's performance. That is, I will be successful at any cost. I will strive. I will work. I will produce. And the one that I relate to isn't the addiction side. It is also the performance and the striving side. And it's really working for something. It's not working from something. It's almost like working for the approval of God, for the approval of others. And it is very tiring. I would love to start at maybe the ruthless elimination of hurry, some takeaways there. Were there specific things that stood out to you in that book? Because I do have it here, because I read it a few years ago and it slapped me around in a way that I needed. But what would stand out to you, and what would you share with somebody?
So I remember just reading this book and being blown away, because it was like he had written out my life. I was like,
read your journal?
Yes. But he used a quote from Corrie ten Boom. He said, if the devil can't make you sin, he'll keep you busy.
Yeah, if he can't make you bad,
And that arrested my heart. He also talked a lot about margin. Having margin in our life. And if we give people and things and activities way too much access in our life, we have no margin for presence. We have no margin for, he talked about the fact that Jesus had to have been walking slowly to see Zacchaeus in a tree. He had to have been walking slowly to see them. There's crowds everywhere, but there was something about the pace of Jesus that meant that he could see the man in the tree. And the fact that he had no plans for lunch that day, but said, I'm coming to your house. He had margin in his life. It arrested my heart, because the ministry that I was used to, or the ministry that I knew, was
like so full, so busy.
It's full. It is, and our life is still so full. We have children, we have a ministry, we have church, we have all of these things, and our life is full. But sometimes it's filled with so much activity that there's no margin for the quiet whispers of the Lord. And so those are just some of the keys that I pulled from it, and obviously spiritual disciplines, which I know we'll get into as well.
I actually remember reading this several years ago, and I took a couple notes, and I'm like, these are my pull quotes. These are my one-liners. A whole premise of the book is that hurry is the great enemy of the spiritual life. And I think in modern faith and modern Christianity, we don't really see that as such. We see temptation and sin and, perversion and all those things as like they're enemies of spirituality. But fathom that, like sit on that for a while. That hurry is an enemy of spiritual maturity and spiritual depth. Another quote from that book from John Mark Comer is the problem isn't having a lot to do. The problem is having too much to do. And the only way to keep the quota up is to hurry, or it's to stress, or it's to strive. Not only does hurry keep us from love, joy, and peace of the kingdom of God, the very core of what all human beings crave, but it keeps us from God himself by stealing our attention.
Ugh,
yeah.
so good.
Well, what a good quote, hurry, we're never our best selves when we hurry. And I feel like that as a mum, if you're hustling in the morning.
Yeah.
And I it's not like I don't still hurry from time to time, or I say, we've got to go, we're in a rush. But now I catch myself. Now I'm not justifying, always making my family feel stressed. And I still probably am a pretty high-strung person. Like if you ask my husband, and I still am a productive person and I still want to have a fruitful life, but having that revelation of hurrying and always being in a rush, it's actually not the rhythm of Jesus. It's not the rhythm of Jesus to never have any time, to never have time for God. Because if you're too busy for God, you're actually just too busy, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like if you can't have a devotional life and you're a believer, you got to start cutting something out.
Yeah.
And maybe that's watching Netflix. Maybe that is sometimes serving too much. I feel like we can replace our faith and we can replace a Christ-centered life and Christianity with almost like churchianity. We're very busy with the activity of God.
Yeah.
But we need to be consumed and have our attention on God first, and then allow that to, overflow into where we serve, where we lead, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Churchianity is a great word for that, because I feel like I learned that. I rehearsed it. I knew it so well. And when things happen in your life and you have to stop, I think your motivation for why you were doing it in the first place begins to be exposed and revealed. And then you go back to the one thing. You go back to Mary at the feet of Jesus. This is actually what it is. Another book that I read is called Abba's Child by a guy named Brennan Manning.
Okay.
And he was a monk, or like a modern monk. He eventually got married and he wrote all these amazing books, but he spent time in places like prisons and like a cave for 6 months alone and crazy things like this to practice like silence and solitude.
Yeah, I love it.
And what he discovered, he said, through all of these through all these things that he did, was that he is so loved by God. That was his number one lesson. He says it like this. He says, define yourself as one who is radically loved by God. Every other identity is an illusion.
Wow, that's powerful.
And and the fact that he could just sit in a cave and be loved by God, I wonder if we could get to that place where it's okay for us to sit and watch the grass grow and be loved by God. Would that be enough for us? And God has called us to so much more. That's not the point. But would we be okay in our own soul to sit and be loved by God? And I really loved, that's another great book, add to your list.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're getting to, and that's the core of the issue, because I think hurry and striving it's almost like the fruit on a tree, but the root is a misplaced identity.
It was for me. And that's the only reason I can talk about it like this. And I'm not I hope it didn't come across as judgmental, or it doesn't, because I fully understand.
That was me.
I was
me too.
there.
I'm like self-confessed. Yeah. We have our identity in what we do for God rather than who we are. And that's something that I believe we always have to go back to. We always have to go back to actually we are children of God before we're ministers, before we serve him, before we do anything for him. And I appreciate the way that was kind of framed by him. It was really beautiful.
Yeah.
It was really profound.
It was beautiful. And also that it doesn't, like you said, it's always, it's constant. It didn't stop for me 10 years ago when I went through that journey.
Yeah.
And like, oh yeah, great. I know about rest now. It's always, it's because my default often is to go back to that place of busyness and striving. And so when I get to that place, I'm like, oh, something feels off. Something feels out of whack. I feel out of rhythm. I'm really stressed. I'm really tired. Why? And it has to be kind of like I don't know, not necessarily daily, but we have to go back to that place of what's out of whack with where do I need to come back into rest in the Lord? Yeah.
Hey friend, if you have been enjoying the Healthy Christian podcast, you can now show your support through Buy Me a Coffee. There's no pressure, but your support really helps us keep creating and reaching more people. Link in the description. An illustration that kind of comes to mind is when you have like a wheel alignment, right? Ooh. You've got to do that regularly. You've got to get a car serviced. And I know for those of us that may be more prone to going down that route of performance or busyness or hurry, it is not a one-off. Like I think back to all the books I've read about this, about Sabbath, about rest, and I still go, oh man, there's been seasons probably in the last 12 months where I have felt the wheels go back to the way that I would naturally operate. And I needed that alignment. And sometimes that comes through gentle reminders by the Holy Spirit. Sometimes that comes through conversations like this. Yeah. Sometimes it comes through the books that we pick up and we consume and we read. And other times it's, the conversations that we have. And we all need to keep coming back to that place of rest. Speaking of rest, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So through this journey, I learned what spiritual disciplines were. I didn't know what they were prior to this. So I learned firstly, I guess, about Sabbath. And that has been a game changer in our life and our family. It is so life-giving to the heart of our family. And essentially what it looks like for us, because when I say Sabbath, I feel like people are like, what does that mean? Like, does she say Shabbat Shalom as her husband enters the door? And that's like literally, no. Although we do say Shabbat Shalom now because it's fun.
And have you been watching The Chosen? That's where I'll always see it too.
And I so want my setting of Shabbat to look like that, although it so doesn't. But what it is for us, and it is that we get around the table together. I don't make a 4-course banquet.
Yeah,
I make something.
Can I come to your house for Sabbath, please?
I make something super simple that I haven't had to slave over because the whole idea is rest.
Yes.
And so the whole idea is that we stop. And so I make something super simple that I know the kids will love, something that we're going to enjoy. And the whole premise is we cease and we celebrate.
Nice.
And so we set the table together, we light a candle, and the first candle is like, okay, kids, what's this? And they say, cease. What are we ceasing from? All works. And then we light the second candle, and what's this for? Celebrate. And what are we celebrating? We're celebrating God and each other. And what our Sabbath day is it should be a day of delight.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing about even our Christian culture sometimes is like, what, I can delight?
Yes.
I can have a day to delight in the Lord, fill the day with things that bring me joy and delight, not worldly things, like godly things, but a day to delight, a day to stop, a day to pause, a day to not allow access. We were talking before about access, and just be with him.
Speaking of Sabbath, one of my favorite authors, Peter Scazzero, goes into it a lot in his book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And he talks about 4 kind of elements to Sabbath. And you said one of them, to delight, right? Mm-hmm. It includes delighting in God, creation, relationships, food, beauty, play. There's another 3. So again, stop, which is your cease, right? So ceasing from work, productivity, and striving. Sabbath begins by intentionally stopping what you normally do to achieve, perform, or produce. Resting. So resting physically, emotionally, and spiritually, including, sleep. Sometimes it's extra sleep. It's stillness. It's doing what replenishes the soul instead of drains the soul. And then the fourth one, which I really appreciate, is it's actually creating space to be with God without an agenda, right? So without, God, I need to prepare a sermon. God, I need to get this from you. God, I'm praying for something. It's not coming to God with your laundry list of prayers. It's coming to God because he's God, because he's our Father, because he's our shepherd and our creator. And we were literally formed to be in his presence. Like our soul finds home in the presence of God. And so I hope that those things give a little bit of a framework of that's what Sabbath is. It's nothing ethereal or spooky.
No.
It's actually just us being intentional about spending time with what God has given to us and spending time with God. And another thing that Peter Scazzero says about the Sabbath is that it is not a spiritual luxury, it's a spiritual discipline.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of the time, I would say for many years, I would have seen Sabbath and even resting, any form of rest, was like a luxury. Like taking a holiday, I would not have taken a holiday, I think, for the first several years of us doing ministry, because for me, that felt lazy.
Yeah.
It felt like I wasn't producing anything. Why would I go on holidays where I can't work or write a blog or reach somebody or do something that had productivity tied to it?
Yeah.
Again, it's an identity issue. It's a striving issue.
Totally.
It's a performance issue. But now I'm like, we block out the calendar at the beginning of the year.
So good.
And we're like, where will we have our family holiday this year?
Yeah.
And not that it has to be costly all of the time. It's, are we going to go to the Sunshine Coast? Are we going to go to the Gold Coast and stay a few days? But rest and rhythms is a very vital part of our calendar year, whereas 10 years ago, I would have considered that completely irrelevant.
Yeah. And unproductive.
Yeah.
That's how it feels.
Yes.
And that's how rest feels, but it is the most productive thing that you can do. Jefferson Bethke and John Mark Comer talk about different spiritual disciplines that worked for them. And like one of them was just slowing down.
Yeah.
So for example, I taught myself to drive in the slow lane.
Oh, wow.
Like taught myself that it's okay to be in the slow lane. It's okay to not rush on the road, because hurry doesn't just filter into our ministry or our family life. Hurry filters into every part of our day, every aspect of our day. And like little things, like he would say, like when you go run an errand, leave your phone at home so that you aren't in line, like scrolling through your phone at the post office, so that you're actually like away from your phone for a moment. I think that's a huge part of why we need rest more today than we did 20 years ago, because we have
a culture that's almost always on as well.
Absolutely.
And I remember watching something a few weeks ago about, I think he was a psychologist, saying that often we feel so exhausted because we have so many open loops. So we're like always checking our phone. We always have an open loop of emails. So, and I feel like I'm guilty of that. Like I often work at night, late at night, because we put the kids to sleep. And, you know, if you're juggling different responsibilities and a couple of jobs, but it's actually that open loop of people are always able to access us, but we're always able to access information and see what we haven't done. And it's this acceleration of technology, but it does feel more tiring than, think about, you know, maybe a farmer who works a hard day on the land, but he shuts off. He comes in and he has dinner, and those 2-3 hours before the sun sets and they go to sleep, that's a reset.
Yeah.
And we're not actually having regular resets in a modern culture.
No.
We are cramming as much as we can and then wondering why our soul feels so tired.
I was just going to touch on when you were speaking, I thought of the Shemitah year, which is the 7th year and that was the year where they had to let the land rest.
Yes, yes.
And that's like, we don't have resets like that in our modern life,
no,
like you're saying. Like that's why I think farming sounds so good to us right now. That's why people are moving onto properties.
Look,
and like
part of me, I always say to Ben, is like, can we buy somewhere a bit further away and have some animals? And I'm like, still pastor, I'm not saying like pull the plug and like abandon. But I think we're really built to be in nature. We're built to know the ebbs and flows of life, not just be constantly hustling and bustling.
That's where we really learn about the seasons. I mean, I learned so many sermon tips through my gardening, through like pulling up my weeds, and I'm like, oh, God's just speaking to me as I'm gardening. Like, we are meant to be connected to nature. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And it's because there's rest and rhythms. Yeah. And so if you think about even the seasons that change, there is a season to plant, and then there is a season to harvest. And we know that Ecclesiastes talks about that. There's a season under the sun and for everything. And I think that the bottom line of this kind of striving is that you're always in the same season. You're not finding those moments to sit and settle. Everything is about moving forward or producing something. And I remember seeing a illustration in one of the books that I'd read here. I think it was Peter Scazzero's, where he talked about we have a culture that is like work, 50 weeks of the year, and then you take 2 weeks off. And it's like that's meant to sustain you. Whereas what Sabbath does, and really the rhythms of grace and the rhythms of God, is you work and then you rest. You work and then you rest. It's like the regularity. It's like a song that has pauses in it. Yeah. Like we can't just listen to a song that's like the tempo's like up all the time. It has to have rest in it.
That's so true.
Our lives need to have rest in it as well.
That's so beautiful. I remember like writing at the time, I won't be caught up in a chorus of chaos. And because it just feels like this loud, and it actually disrupts so much of your life. Like it feels chaotic and frenetic, but there is a rhythm in rest. It's this beautiful flow. It's actually, and it's what we were made for. It's what we were made for. We actually need winter. We need winter. We need the leaves to fall. We need those seasons where we've actually rejected like winter seasons of our life because maybe they don't produce. But we need winters in our life. They actually strip away the old to bring forth the new. And you would not have spring without winter. And we focus a lot on, like you said, producing and productivity and fruitfulness. And sometimes fruitfulness looks like being stripped back, resting, and all of these things that are so they're so opposite to the culture. That's why we have an upside down kingdom. It's totally upside down.
Yeah. And you're right. We do live in a culture where it is about moving forward, and everything is about the hustle, and it is about, success. But as Christians, we have a different target when it comes to success, like our well-being, our wholeness, our walk with God, the atmosphere of our homes. Like that's what is a value. That's what it means to be successful, is those things, to be thriving. Bianca, what would you say to somebody that maybe can relate to you and I by default, being a little bit more performance orientated, feeling like they naturally fall into this mode of striving? What would you say to a Christian that is kind of tuned in today? Where should they go from here?
I feel like starting to implement just some spiritual disciplines in your life, whether it be 5 minutes of silence a day. Where you practice silence and stillness, where you just sit with the Lord for no other reason than just to be with him and wait until you feel his presence. Like just practice something that feels unproductive.
Challenge accepted.
And I'm a super high capacity person. I feel like by nature, like this type A go-getter. I've always done things like pioneering. That's what we do. And so it feels counter even to my personality. Often.
I agree.
And so, but just practicing these things, and once you start to implement them and they enrich your life in such a way where you it changes you. It changes your heart. It changes your pace. I feel like urgency has minimized in my life. It's just minimized the urgency that I have to get everything done now. The Lord is like, he's looking from eternity back and he's working things out, whereas we're like looking forward and plowing ahead. And I think watch the minimization of your urgency. It will happen eventually. Yeah.
That's so good. I love that you mentioned silence and solitude, because really that's the way of Jesus, is it not?
Yeah.
That he often withdrew to, it says, lonely places, desolate places to be with the Father. I love this definition of silence and solitude. Solitude is the practice of being absent from people and things to attend to God. And silence is the practice of quietening every inner and outer voice to attend to God. So one is, taking us away so that we're removed from people, and the others are tuning us to God. And that's so necessary. I said it before, it's what we were made for. It was what we were built for. What about to the person that sees rest as counter kingdom maybe, right? Yes. So we're obviously all called to do something, and we're all called to partner with God, fulfill the Great Commission. What comes to mind for me is the story of Adam, even in the garden. He was given a job. Yeah. And so I just want to talk about the fact that we're not saying sit back and do nothing.
No. Yeah.
It's just the place that you do it from is so important. Yes. What would you add to that?
I would say that Sabbath was the start of the week because we work from rest, not toward it. And I think that we are more productive, and studies have shown this. I wish I could pull up some stats right now, but studies have shown this. We are more productive when we've rested. Yeah. I mean, if you think that rest is outside of the kingdom, then go back and read in the beginning. On the seventh day, God rested.
He's God.
If he's God and he rested, and he rested, you know why? To delight in his work.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to look back at what God's done, what he's done in us and through us, and the fruit that's grown. If we never stop to enjoy that, we're missing it. And so stop to reflect and delight in the work that God's done through you. And it's never stopped me from being productive. Ever.
Yes, I love that.
Ever.
I love that. Really what we're saying is it's not about living a fruitful or productive life. It's just stripping back the striving and the hurrying. And, I look at you, beautiful mum, 4 kids, served God wholeheartedly, been in ministry, and have sown so many seeds in the kingdom of God. But it's the place that you're sowing it from isn't a deficit. It's an overflow. Yes. And that's the purpose. That's the purpose of Sabbath. That's the purpose of rest and rhythm, is to actually honor and trust God with the template that he's given to us, and to abide in him and let our lives be fruitful for the things that really matter.
Yes. And abiding happens just by abiding. Fruitfulness happens just by abiding. It's just by sitting with him. I even think about the fact that Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest."
Yes.
And, the people back then, they hadn't had the voice of God for 300 years. Yeah. They're coming off the back of working so hard and striving and making their sacrifices and working and not hearing his voice. Can you imagine what a balm to their soul that would have been in that moment? Come to me. Yes. And the Lord has that same call for us in this day and age, in this busy, frenetic culture that we are constantly in this fast-paced environment. He's saying the same thing. Come to me, all you who labor, and I will give you rest.
Love it. I feel like that's a beautiful place to end, is that he's inviting us all into his presence and into his peace and into his strength, so that we can live the lives that he's actually called us to live and to be effective. Because that's also what he wants from each and every one of us. Bianca, thank you so much for chatting today. Appreciate your wisdom. You've got so much to offer, and we're just grateful. We hope that you were blessed and this conversation inspires and encourages you. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.
I love it.
Hey friend, if you've been enjoying the Healthy Christian podcast, you can now show your support through Buy Me a Coffee. There is no pressure, but your support really helps us keep spreading and creating this content. Link in description, check it out. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed today's episode, comment below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and let's get healthy together.